Cringe is something unique to all of us, namely what we cringe at. It's all over the place and you can't really give a set example of what it is because of how vast cringe can reach. But you know it when you see it. In times past, cringe would be a verb exclusively, as in I cringed when I watched the king poop his pants up on his little royal balcony. The word cringe is Germanic, deriving from the Dutch word kriegen. Kriegen roughly translates to heel over. Kriegen would make way for cringe with a double E by the time Middle English found its way on the scene. The word cringe would commonly be used to describe the act of falling in battle after this transition to Middle English. I guess people today are falling in a metaphorical battle, one could say. The word cringe, not as we know it, would become less common only a few decades after its adoption to Middle English, later fading completely out of regular use, especially in the context of falling in battle. Fun fact, the word cringe was as likely used in the 1860s as in the 1980s. I saw a Google line chart, don't know how they gauged that, but I trusted it enough to relay it to you all. Depending on if I found this obscure graph, you could see the evidence in front of you. It wasn't until the emergence of the new millennia, the second to be exact, that the use of the word would begin taking off in popularity once again. Popularity would be found especially in internet culture, but under a new definition. Over the past decade, the word cringe has evolved into an adjective. To give an example, people are described as being cringe, not so much as having cringed. The statement, "I cringe" to me personally is a less common saying than referring to something as cringe. We could go on a whole diatribe about how languages evolve. For example, if the flow of a sentence works with a particular word choice, such as a response to quote-unquote, "who all was there," I think it should be completely acceptable in the English language to go, "it was me, Michael, James, Bob, and so on." Proper English dictates you include yourself after everyone else, and in the form of I no less, which sometimes just sounds weird. Either of the choices in which you include yourself is fine with me. I'm not going to correct you. Interrupting a conversation to point out a grammatical error in everyday speech, especially in the flow of said conversation, is more cringe than a minor syntax error.
But you told I that you loved I.
And I am, Jen, I really am. I love you, I just don't in love with you. Not anymore.
Name one way why.
Look, it aren't you, it's me.
I'm 100% positive anyways you're not pronouncing environment the way it was originally intended with any accent.
Environment.
I'm also sure you've heard someone describe another person as cringe. I did it just now with speech patterns, and assuming I hit the line correctly in my script, it didn't sound unnatural or forced. This isn't new information. It happens every day for me. Moments where I internally go, that's cringe. Cringe has taken on a unique syntax, similar to cool. A few examples are, things are cool, that person has a cool personality, and so on. It was only natural we fill the other side of the one-word sayings, the anti-cool, with a word just as simple. That person is cringe, the industry is cringe. Despite the need for some conjugation being present, cringe has stuck around and seems to be catching on with no sign of downtrend since its initial rise in internet culture. To give more examples of how heavy the reintroduction has been, you don't say things make you feel cool. They look cool, and what makes you feel whatever emotion plus the feeling that what you're looking at, be it person or thing, is cool. Cringe is similar, yes, you can cringe, as it's been a verb in days past, but the adjective use seems more in place in today's society. It's a cause and effect reasoning with something being cringed to already causing you to have cringed. As obscure and as cringe as it may be in itself to get this introspective about words changing meaning, cool doesn't just refer to a temperature anymore. We'll end our delve into language here, as I could go on forever about how as long as you're communicating effectively, let people talk the way they want. Slang is crucial to culture. We're using the word as much as we were back in the olden days, just under a different meaning. So besides a rapidly rising word, what is this new cringe? Well, because we're all unique individuals, we think at least one person or another on this planet is flawed in their opinions, giving us that icky no-good feeling of cringe. This creates a cringe chain reaction that leads to everyone on the planet being subjectively cringe to another person. No one can escape the cycle of cringe. Even if you left society to go live in the woods, someone somewhere would think the idea of living in the woods is cringe. I'm not saying you would really care, because you're surrounded by the beauty of nature and you've returned to your roots as a hunter-gatherer, but still, point being, someone would think that's cringe. The emotion is a unique blend of disgust and mockery, and that weird feeling of not being able to look away from a car accident, especially if it's performative like dances or pranks. You don't feel anger, but the shroud of good grief comes over you quickly. I've been obsessed with cringe since I found my first comp back in 2013. For me, it was an instant fascination with the bizarre and unnerving, trying to familiarize myself with all of the heinous actions one can take to end up in a cringe comp. In other words, I wanted to watch as much as possible so I knew what not to do in real life. To become anti-cringe was the mission. This mission would be futile in nature because of the cringe domino fallacy mentioned earlier. To prove this point, there's definitely a moment in your life you can recall where you did or said something embarrassing, and if you think about it, it'll instantly make you tighten up and go, why did I do that? Sorry to make you think of it right now, but, trying to make a point. Early 2013 cringe comps today are just everyone's For You page on TikTok. Pretty light stuff overall. Topics in the early days of cringe were furries and anime weebs, and you could always count on a few rare gems of terrible rap battles or poorly executed fights. Sure, those things still make you cringe, but with everyone having access to the internet and a camera, those topics, to me at least, are considered low-hanging fruit. It's everywhere and easy to find. I am not a furry, and I think they've become more renounced from the limelight of cringe. Same with anime weebs, but there's still actions to avoid, like not wearing a fursuit to school or cosplay outside the appropriate spaces. For the anime one, especially don't do voices, don't quote scenes, don't act like some protagonist, don't yiff, don't make yourself out to be an animal or other fictitious creature. Oh shit, this came to me while going over the final draft, but that thing where you pretend to switch universes, I don't know if that's still going on, but yeah, you did not go to Hogwarts or any other universe. You're not a wolf, you're not a fairy, you're not a super genius mastermind who deserves Elon Musk's attention back when he was still kind of cool. There's a difference between giving a reality check and stomping on someone's dreams. No one's saying you can't dress up, write, or live out all your worldly desires, but you have to have a basis in reality to a certain degree. If you think you're anything other than a human person, you're just baseline cringe. But like I keep saying, no one is free of cringe, not even me. That doesn't mean you can't reduce your capacity for doing something cringy though. I got, a tad picked on when my nerdier side came out at school. The world used to be a lot like a sitcom with nerds and popular kids. I would talk about my affinity for high fantasy and anime, which wasn't as mainstream as it is now. But either way, I still had the social skills to be considered, well adapted and typically non-cringe. No cosplays or voices found here, no siree or madam or gender neutral persons on the spectrum because that's not cringe. It isn't. It's not ironic to be, gender is a spectrum. It's not cringe. Whatever. Even more so than the basics, you can set yourself up to be cringe in multiple ways. Hopping on political open mics, attempting a thirst trap, offensive humor, trench coats, pranks channels, religious zealotry, public rage. The list goes on for what can end you up in a cringe comp, but honestly, it's not that hard to be a forgettable face in the sea of people you pass every day. Cringe, despite appearing seemingly harmless, does have real-world effects and stems from a lack of understanding of the environment around oneself. I've seen a few videos where people will talk like anime protagonists in the face of conflict with serious consequences in store, which is just insane. It's insane. Watch this one.
So what I need you to do right now is I'm not real comfortable with you being this close
Good.
and this stuff, so I'm going to back up a little bit.
Good.
I'm going to back up.
Back
a
up. Right all the way to your desk.
No, I will not do it. Would you please call security, call or this is threatening behavior. We need an officer in here.
You dare to humiliate me. You think you can do that?
Are you kidding me?
The teacher clearly feels wildly uncomfortable. He felt what he was saying, speaking with his entire being, his whole ass chest. A large portion of the time, I don't believe people are intentionally trying to be mainstream cringe. I mean, there are those doing it for reactions or engagement on social platforms, definitely. But who willingly wants to feel ostracized by their peers? A lot of surface-level cringe can be derived from the intertwining of fiction and the real world. Thinking that things will work out like they do in TV and movies is a great way to do something you'll end up regretting. Most of the time when it comes to cringe within niche subgroups, like, My Hero Academia and anime, it's outsiders that enter the so-called cringe community, picking the easy targets to showcase as cringe. In this case of cringe, it's often those kids who are going to cringe at themselves when they see what they posted in a few years. The results being posted by outsiders into the mainstream internet on cringe comps or so forth. It's kind of meta, but yeah. This effect can kill groups, fandoms, or hype for something pretty quick, especially if there's a flood of these types of content shares, rapid sharing of the cringe content. To play devil's advocate, most things taken out of context will probably look bad, but also it's not like those who have been caught committing the alleged sin of cringe should be immune from repercussions. They did post openly on the internet for all to see. I just wish the larger view of the world didn't narrow down the fan base of any IP to an example of cringe. Back to what I said earlier, everyone is cringe to someone, but as a general society, some acts are more egregious than others. Just as certain topics should be criticized, there are others that are off limits from being called cringe. We'll get to that list later in the video. Even I, who streamline ideas of understanding and compassion, find things cringe. I know, but my cringe rests in the real world. I have a love-hate relationship with people who act like total NPCs, psychos, or main characters in the real world. This is the only cringe that still works for me. Socially awkward people don't really bother me too much if they're not hurting anyone. We'll talk about this also later in the video. That and something else that recently happened to me caused a new form of cringe I didn't realize I was bothered by. I have a platform and a small enough audience, so I'm going to do this next part without it feeling like targeting. I got a comment saying that one of my videos is cringy at best. It was on my how to turn success into failure. Not going to say who it is, and I don't really care if you go look. I mean, it seemed like a throwaway account anyway, to be honest. Normally this type of thing doesn't bother me, but personal experience is the best way to make a point, so that's why I'm sharing said anecdote. What's cringe to me is that this person who left the comment has contributed nothing to the platform. No videos, no shorts, no nothing, nada. It's not even the biggest issue. The biggest issue is that I don't care if you leave criticism, but make it criticism at the least. Hey, this video sucks because your cuts are choppy. Hey, this video is ass because of the point you made not really making sense to me. Say whatever you want about the content I make, but come on, use the energy you take typing up a message to make it worthwhile. If you think you can do better, go on, do it. Like, what? I don't delete comments mainly because free speech is dope, but also so my cool kid subscribers and viewers can utterly roast the shit out of them if they choose to do so. You've seen me admit my faults in other videos. I've acknowledged I am wrong with some of the science I've used in the past, but when it's brought up to my attention, I always make a point to highlight the correction in the next video. When you add nothing to the grander scheme of it all, from what I can see, then you go and leave a stupid ass comment, that's what's really cringe. My final thoughts on being called cringe? No, you. Remember to be nice to people. I just brought this up as like maybe an opinion worth thinking about when you comment mean shit. Say all you want, but just be constructive with it. Moving on. I'm an adult and don't have the mental capacity or effort to think cringe is those superfans going to conventions, overzealous about a franchise, or a kid with undiagnosed ADHD doing something in a classroom that would be considered out of place. What I'm saying is, cringe has transformed for me. It's no longer poorly executed cosplays or fursuits. My cringe needs some actual substance of an implication in the larger problems of a society. r/actual public freakouts is a great place to find, how do I say this, more mature cringe. TikTok dances and lip syncs are soft compared to some of the videos you'll find on this subreddit, not to glorify any capacity of violence. As when our issues become more worldly, so do our cares on what people are doing. Besides annoying comments, what's more cringe to me is the destruction of public property, freakouts on service industry workers, and oh, don't get me started on the NYC subway clips. Take a look at this video of a gentleman using a fire extinguisher in a sealed, crowded train car, on Christmas Eve too. What about the multiple clips of just random tirades of racism that happen in those same spaces? Just because humans gather in one place doesn't mean we have to act like there's a bunch of humans gathered in one place. Here's another video of a fast food worker taking an unnecessary abuse from some pissant customer. Once you're removed from the bubble of adolescence and begin to understand and care less about the trends these kids are doing, you turn your focus to the big person world and the big people problems. Looking at comps of kids being cringy just kind of doesn't hit the same. My default setting just sorts it up to kids will be kids and today's youth sure are spirited. Check this out. I'll play some real cringe versus what I call surface cringe.
They all have the regular
Okay,
ears.
let me have the kitten before you lose it.
Maybe I don't want to give it to you.
Okay, then you can leave.
Well, you have an attitude.
I'm gonna take the kitten from you.
No.
I'm gonna call PD.
Over a cat?
Can you call dispatch?
Now you're really not getting the cat.
Okay.
If you call the cops, you're not getting the cat for surely.
I work with the police department.
Yeah, but I don't have to surrender an animal to you.
don't.
It's an option.
You don't. You're absolutely
Yeah,
right.
I found the cat and you're having an attitude.
What is your plan with the kitten?
I'm gonna put him in a blender.
Okay. I'm glad you're recording that.
Right. I don't know. She looks kind of tight. Might go for it later. Lube it up, slip it in. No, I'm just joking. I'm joking. Here.
Animal control to Upland PD.
Now you're really not getting the cat. See, now she's trying to call 12. See?
Ah, my darling. Hello there. Well, it's my new fedora. It's very nice and stylish, and this is going to be my new hat now. Folks, this has been my unboxing video of my new fedora.
But the knife.
But as always, I'm Tommy NC2010. I'm keeping you On the inside.
If you had to pick which one is worth giving a shit about, would you go with option A or option B? As an adult in my mid-20s, I would say that casting judgment on literal children or compiling them into a compilation is more cringe than whatever they could be doing times 10. You're probably sitting there telling yourself, Gideon, what about adults in life who are cringe? I'm so glad you asked. Most of those people who have an obsession with certain topics or activities considered cringe are likely developmentally delayed in some way or another, whether that be social norms or communicating 100% effectively. You shaming them doesn't do anything positive for making them not cringy to you. When I say don't shame certain folks for being traditionally cringe, I mean just don't bully the little guy for being different. World of T-Shirts, an infamous TikTok star who's up there with Daniel Larson and that one Australian guy who goes by Spidey, but will purely focus on World of Shirts, aka Josh, deserves his own video entirely. If shown to teenage me, however, he would have been considered cringe. Today, I have sympathy for the man. He's a struggling alcoholic who's being taken advantage of by those around him. Simply pointing and laughing, calling him cringe, doesn't do anything besides make the world more cruel. With that said, there is a long list of shitbags and Karens out there that are cringe, and the only redemption they can hope for is public lambasting. Here are a few more clips.
Yo. No, you fucking my man all up. You messed him all up. No, you're doing it all wrong. See? I got you, bro. Here. You gotta... I got you.
There has to be a line drawn in the sand for what we stand for. To transition from my earlier statement of cringe for adults, the following things are not cool and deserve the shame they get. They'll each be followed up with clips so you don't think I'm capping, as the youth say. Racism. That one's easy.
These bombings?
Oh, so I've done the bombing?
Yeah, you have.
So I've done the bombing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
People like you.
What have people like me doing? By doing what?
Yeah,
Where are you going? Sit down.
You look
Well, sit
down
down.
on us.
You know what? Pretty much any prejudice, just to get it out of the way. This includes sexism, ableism, ageism, making fun of another socioeconomic situation, ethnicity, disabilities, and anything you know you're not supposed to make fun of. Don't play dumb, just don't do it. I feel like thirst traps are fair game, but in the same way your comment could just as easily be cringe because you're, like body shaming people or whatever.
Weird things girls find attractive. The eye roll thingy. Choking.
You know what I mean? Just like those, you can get cringed out by thirst traps. Moving on, and speaking of thirst traps, those old dudes who post weird heart eye emojis under photos of models.
I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. But I'm only human.
Their comebacks can be gold or even more cringe. What's important is you may roast them. Pretty much anything Penguin Zero says is cringe is dubbed as such. I don't make the laws, I just follow them. I saw a video on his channel where he talked about a guy that gave a shout out to his sponsors after he was saved while climbing Mount Everest by a Sherpa while dying. So yeah.
Saved by a Sherpa. And after his life was saved by this fucking angel, a hero that literally carried this man on their back down the mountain to safety so they could be airlifted out. In response to that unbelievable action, the guy started thanking his sponsors, and only his sponsors. He never thanked the Sherpa that saved him, or really any of the Sherpas that helped save his life and perform this incredible rescue. He only had his sponsors.
That's cringe. Crypto, tech bros.
After Fast and Furious 7, didn't. It's our bad. Now, while we don't have The Rock here today, we do have the...
Some, not all, commentary channels, bullies the occasional stand-up comedian.
Sorry about that. I'm really sorry. Hey, what kind of water do you guys drink? You guys drink from the city water, or you guys...
Ian, Wendy Williams.
How dare you! I don't like the mother, I don't like the father, I don't like any of them. Nope, none of them. Fire everybody and escape now, Brittany.
James Corden.
It's James, isn't it? When the presenters are up here and when the recipients are receiving their awards, don't stand at the back of the stage with your hands in your pockets, looking around as though you wished you were anywhere but here.
And those film bros who watched those movies, I'm talking like Blade Runner, Drive, you know what, those movies that like Ryan Gosling was like, yeah, those guys who watch those movies are like, oh my god. But yeah, those guys. Amateur podcasters with bad takes, paid financial course advisors, pretty much anyone selling financial advice in any other form.
I mean, I feel good. As a James Bond fan, I feel like James Bond. Even logically, I know this, of course, is not James Bond. I'm not James Bond. But emotionally, it takes me there.
Then a book, and even that is iffy, is a scam and cringe. There are tons of things that are free reign for you to sink your little cringe-sucking proboscis into. A steady source of cringe can be found with your local politicians. Politicians are hella cringe. Look at Florida right now as a big example. Cringe has become such a nuanced art because what you call cringe can be a larger indicator of your flaws just as much as the person you're calling out. If you think homosexuality is cringe, you're clearly homophobic, and like I said earlier, discrimination ain't cool, yo. Homophobia isn't a natural ideology. No ideology, I suppose, is inherently natural other than reproduce and survive. It's safe to say, though, that your homophobia or whatever issues you may have stem down from teachings that you've been passed on or environments you've environmented. Where cringing at the wrong stuff is already cringe in itself, cringing at the right things can be seen as noble. My main point in talking about what cringe is or what it's okay to call cringe isn't really to persuade you to cringe at anything you wouldn't already do so at. I just think we all unanimously as a society need to move on to our second tier cringe phase. Cringe 2, Electric Boogaloo. Do what you want because there's always going to be someone with something to say. It's inescapable, and to limit yourself to what others think only hurt you. Live your life without hurting others or caring what others think. From my years of watching cringe content, don't be annoying or bother others and you won't be cringe, at least to a degree where millions of people remember the moment immortalized on the internet. I've been your host, Gideon. We're super close to hitting our first 1,000 subscribers. I've got a cool merch release idea once we get there. In the meantime, I hope you enjoy this one. I appreciate the extra week of patience between this release and the last video. Hopefully I was able to live stream and make some quality shorts in the week leading up to this video's release. If not, fourth dimensional sorry coming back at you from the past. Once again, I am your host, Gideon. Please like and subscribe. Peace out!